Hello everyone, welcome back to AK Academy and welcome back to the final part of our Blazor Outlook calendar. In the previous video, we have initialized the authentication with Microsoft account. Everything just working great. We have get the access token. In this video, we'll learn how we can acquire the access token from the local storage and cookies from the browser and use it to make requests to the Microsoft Graph to fetch all the events within a specific month. Now, let's talk a little bit just about Microsoft Graph before we proceed with our process. Here we have a tool called the Graph Explorer. Microsoft Graph in general is the API that actually allows you to get all your data from Microsoft 365 within one place. As you can see here, here is most of the capability that Microsoft Graph allows you to get and deal with Microsoft Graph in general. You can get data, post, update, delete, and whatever. You can get data from Excel, Groups, Insights, Microsoft Teams, Notifications, OneDrive, OneNote, Calendar, and and Contacts as well, and many more. You can explore all of them here. You can find the link in the description box and also in the Microsoft documentation. But for our demo and for our application, we need to deal with the calendar. So we need to get all the events. Now, all the events in my calendar, as you can see here, this is the base URL for the authenticated user. When you send it, get request with your access token, so then you can get all the events. But to filter those events, actually can use the query parameters in the URL here to query the result and do many other things. Here you can find all the possibilities that query parameters provide for you while you are sending a request to the Microsoft Graph API. You can send order by parameter, search, select, skip, top, whatever. But for our application, we need two of them. Filter, because we will filter the events that will be bigger than the first day of the month and less than the last day of the month. So in this way, it gives us all the events within a specific month. And we will use also select, because the event object is big, but we need for our demo just subject, start, and end for the event. So we can define it like this. Here, if you go to Graph Explorer pack, I have prepared that one. Use filter, because Microsoft Graph uses the O data. If you are not familiar with it, for now, it's just, I'll explain it a little bit. For filter, there is a start property, a start object, that contains two properties, the date time and time zone. So we need the date time property and start time greater than the 1st of May, and at the same time the end property, the date time of the end object, less than, this LT means less than 15, or no, you wanna 31. So this, let's just run that. Okay, I will refresh that. Yeah. Now I'll paste it. Okay, great. Now we'll remove this from the body. When I try to run the query, as you can see, I have only one event within May. So this is the whole event. Contains location, attendees, organizer, end, start, body, whatever. But the only property that I'm interested in actually is just subject. What is the subject? Here it is. And the start and end. Start and end are objects that contain the date time and the time zone. Could be UTC, like Greenwich or Universal Time Coordinate, or it could be a specific time zone like Eastern Europe, for example. So, as I've said, we need start, end, and subject. And the final result that it returns is like this. An object contains value, which is an array of events. But if I specify something else here, I say and use the $sign, select, only select subject, start and end, click run. So as you can see here, it just returns the property that makes sense for me. We don't need all that big object just to extract the 3. We can just implement this while we are sending the request. So right now I will go back to Visual Studio Code and start implementing that solution. Actually, to do this, first we need to acquire the access token, send a GET request to this URL, events /me/events, not messages. So it's going to return, or this URL in general, it's going to return this one. I will create the corresponding models because I'm not using the Microsoft Graph client. The corresponding model is this response and this object and this one, start and end, which is date, time zone. So I will start first by going to models. I will create a new file, call it graph models.cs, using system public namespace Blazor calendar.models. Now public class. I will create first the response object, say graph events response. It contains public Microsoft Graph event. We will create this class in a moment, and we'll say value. Yeah, it's going to be array get and set, like that. Now let's create the second class, which is Microsoft Graph event. It has 3 properties: subject, public date, time zone. We will create this object also, get set public date, time zone, end set, and let's create that object, public class date, time zone, and it has string date, time, and string called time zone. Go back here to check the result. Okay, now we have all the objects that corresponding to the response we have here. Okay, that's perfect. Those are the models. Now we will create a function here within the Microsoft Graph event, or sorry, within the date time zone, to return to me a date time object for my local time zone. Okay, so gonna be date time, to return date time, convert to local date time. Now I will translate this into a datetime object, var date time equals datetime dot system dot datetime, yes, because the property had the same name, dot rs, and then pass for it the date time. Okay, now I have it as a date time. Now we will convert this time zone string into a time zone info object. I will create time zone info, time zone equals null by default. Now I will check if time zone is equals to UTC, then time zone equals to time zone info dot UTC. Static property that's existing within the time zone info has all the properties or the object of the universal time coordinate, but if it's not UTC, then let's say time zone info dot find system time zone by ID, and the ID is within the time zone sent back from Microsoft. Now in this way I have the datetime as the datetime object and the time zone object as well. So I can create a datetime return new date time offset. This object takes datetime and takes time zone dot base UTC offset. In this case, right now I have a full datetime offset object. I can call the function to local time. So this one, okay, this one returns datetime offset dot date time. Okay. Or you can call exactly directly here the local date time. Yes, it works fine. Perfect. So let me explain again what this piece of code does actually. Microsoft returns to us a string containing the date time of the event, the start and the end, and also the time zone for each data object, as you can see. So we want to return that date as a date time, but in the local time zone of the user, whatever he is, wherever he is. So first we convert this string into a datetime object by using datetime.parse. Then we check the time zone info. If it's UTC, we just use the directly existing here within the time zone info class. But if it's not UTC, then we will try to use the function find system time zone by ID, which will be sent back from Microsoft here. Now we can use the object datetime offset. This structure actually helps us to add a date. As you can see here, we have a date time, but related to a specific time zone. So it gives me an ability to, as you can see, get the local date time in my local date time here. For example, I'm in Beirut. It's +3 for the UTC. So if it's in UTC 3 p.m., it's going to be in Beirut 6 p.m. like this. So in this way we can have a date time from this object that's sent back by Microsoft. Okay, now we have all the models. Let's go and create a folder called services. Within the services, I will create an interface called CalendarEvents provider.cs. Again, namespace Blazor calendar.services, public interface calendar events provider. For now, it has task REPL of calendar event get events in month async integer year. We send it a year and we send it a month, and it retrieves to us a collection of calendar event. Now let's initialize all the objects. Okay, great. Now everything is ready here. We can, what's going on here? Okay, calendar events provider already defines a member called get events in month async with the same parameter. Okay, where is that? Okay, let's click on .NET Build. Okay, there's no issues. I'll try to save it. Now I will copy it, and within the services I will create another folder, another file, sorry, I'll call it Microsoft Calendar Events Provider.cs. Public class Microsoft Calendar Events Provider. This one, public async. Okay, great. Now this one, get events in month async, will send the request back to the Microsoft Graph API and return the response back. So, but the first step to send the request is to get the access token. In the preview release before, when Microsoft added the built-in authentication mechanism for Microsoft Azure Active Directory within a Blazor WebAssembly, they have initialized something called iAccess Token Provider, which allows you to extract the access token for the authenticated user. To do it, let's inject that service first. Private read only iAccess Token Provider. It's built in. Call it access token provider. Get and set. Okay. Sorry, it's not just like this. It's existing in Microsoft ASP.NET Core, the components.webassembly.authentication, and we will inject also the HTTP client, which will be used to send the request. Okay. Now let's create a constructor, public Microsoft Calendar Events, take the iAccess token provider, HTTP client, Okay, great. Now in this way I have all the services. Let's implement right now the function that will acquire the access token. Private async task string get access token async. Now let's see. I will create token request object. It's going to be await access token provider dot request access token, and this function takes options, access token request options, because we have to specify what are the scopes we want. It has a property called scopes. It's a list of strings that we can define the scopes we want to have access to within this access token. So we have only one scope. If I go back to program.cs, which is the calendars.readWrite. Let's copy it. Or we can create a static class with this data, but okay, just fine, like that. Okay, great. Now we can try to fetch the token if token request try get token out, or it's returned as an output parameter of type access token, and here maybe check if token is equals to null, then return token.value. Other than that, return null. So this is the way you can extract the access token for the authenticated user by Microsoft Azure Active Directory. Now, we want to send the request, receive the response, and get the response as a type graph events response. Then we want to translate it into calendar event, and we are ready to go. So here var string access token equals await get access token async if access token equals null, then return null. This is the first step, get token. Now send the request var response equals await http client dot get. Sorry, first we have to specify the header for the http client. We have to set the access token. Can do set the access token in the authorization header. So http client dot default header requests dot authorization equals new. The schema is period token. The value is the access token. This way, now we can send the request dot get string async. We can use this one. Now the request URL, I will go back for here and copy it. Copy. Can paste it here, but we have to initialize it with the minimum date and the maximum date. So I prefer to create another function, private string construct graph URL integer year integer month. So return instead of this one, use the year, and instead of this one, use the month. Here also the same, like that. And we have just a little change. Here we are saying greater than this one. So it will, if there is an event within the first day, it will not be retrieved. So we have to use where is filter parameter, as you can see, greater than or equals, which is GE and LE. Here put not greater than or equal, and less than or equal. Okay, great. Now here we can remove the string and use the get or construct graph URL for the year and the months passed as arguments for this function. Now if response dot status code dot success, is success status code, yes. If it's not success, then return null. Other than that, we will read the content as string http client dot content. So again, sorry, wait, it has been a long time till I make a HTTP call using the HTTP client. I always use the library aksoftware.web. I have used within the planner app. So read as string, But for this demo, I prefer to use everything from scratch, purely .NET libraries. Read as string async. Now we have this one. We should install this JSON library now to translate or to deserialize this object to graph events response. So I will go here and click on .NET, add package, Newton, soft.json. Okay, great. After we read the response successfully, we will say var Microsoft events equals JSON convert dot deserialize object. Okay. The type of object is Microsoft events response, graph events response. Okay, let's import the models, deserialize object, import the models, content and string. Okay, it's already here. Fine. Now, after we have read the response, we should create a list events with new list of calendar event. Create a list of the type that we are using within the calendar, and we will create for each loop on the Microsoft events dot value, which contains the array of events, and in every iteration I will add a new calendar event subject going to be item dot subject, start date equals item dot start dot convert to local date time, end date equals item dot end dot convert to local date time. So here at the end I have list of all the events within a specific month, return events in this way, and we are done. Now let's define the steps here. First, send the request, for read the content, all of this is read the content, then convert the Microsoft event object into calendar event object and return the list. This is everything. Now the next step, we'll call this function whenever the user changes the calendar, like when he choose May, for example, we will bring all the events for this month, and then we will add every event for the corresponding day. Now I think this is enough, or more than enough actually. It was better if I split it into short videos, but yeah, at the end it's the same. Now in the next video we will add the events to the corresponding days, and we are done from that. We still have only one task after that, which is adding an event. When we add an event to the calendar, we push that event to the Microsoft Graph API. So see you in the next video to continue what we are working on.